I hope you're having a good day.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to Gov School today, and we'll be getting started here in just a minute.
Hang on a
I do
sec.
appreciate your attendance. I want to ask a couple of things. First, when you come into the room, you are on a mute situation. You can mute yourself if you like. You have a question. You can also ask the question in the chat box. I appreciate that. This is going to be live on YouTube, so we're not allowing any recordings. If you do have an AI bot trying to log in, they are denied this access for this particular session, just to give you that sort of housekeeping there. And I'm letting folks continue to come into the room. And we'll get started here. And I usually give everybody just a couple of minutes to get into the room properly. Okay. If you like what you see today, please take a minute and like us on Google reviews. I certainly would appreciate that. There's a quick link. Since it's important that we have a good rating. Still coming in the room. I'll let it slow down just a few minutes. Get started here. We're going to spend about 45 minutes together today. Just as a reminder, it is recorded live on YouTube. The recording will be available right after. So if you do need to pop off the call, feel free to do that. If you drop off, you can pop right back on. I'm trying to make that available to you. I would also, if you do have questions, you can certainly type those in the chat box, or I'll make sure you catch my attention if I don't answer your question. I'll try to answer them as we go along. But sometimes I get a little bit distracted. It's just me today talking with you. I'm gonna give you some real live examples of how to use chat and introduce you to our own GovDirections RFP writer that's within ChatGPT. It'll help you out a little bit, hopefully, if you're using it the right way. And then with that said, we'll just get started here. I think it's now slowed down. I appreciate you taking time on this Tuesday afternoon to talk with us. What you're looking at here is our website, RFP Delivery by GovDirections. Just as a quick introduction, for those of you who are not familiar with this, we've been in this space since 1998. We have our main brand with GovDirections, and RFP Delivery is the primary mechanism that we deliver information to you. About 140,000 companies have proactively registered for the service, so we certainly are appreciative of that. We also have the brands Gov School and Gov Advice. Gov School is where we teach, educate, and we have a strong belief in that concept, that basic proverb of teaching a person how to do something and it can help them for a lifetime. And that's what we aim to do here. We also have, though, technical services. Our Gov Advice area is primarily micro consulting. If you need some technical assistance, like, for example, come across here, capability statement writing, documents, we have that available for you on a micro consulting base. But our primary objective is to take those bids, present them to you across the country. We have right now some 48,000. Oh, we're going to probably pass 50,000 while we're here today. We had about 5,000 a day, about 2 to 3 every minute. So it's a constant flow of new opportunities across the United States, primarily in Canada. It's where those $2 flow, those embassies, military bases, and so forth, that you can go in there and have those on geospatial. But I'm going to use this PowerPoint today to kind of walk you through. It is available after that. You're welcome to use some of the slides, but it just will guide us through. But Gov School, of course, is our primary brand. And today, what we're here talking about is the RFP, the request for proposal, and how to use tools and like chat to help you in a more productive way. I know sometimes folks get a little bit concerned about some of this technology, but I'm a big believer in using the tools that you have available to you to make sure that you can come in and be more productive. And that's the primary goal of that. And I think some of you know that I actually teach a class in graduate school, and they're sometimes frown upon use the chat. I was like, why would you not use it? Use a calculator to do math. Why not use something like this to help you out with your writing and help you make sure you have a better. And I always like to start off with this one slide with anything that I do. And it's that concept that, it really is supposed to be a little bit hard. So when you look at something, it looks complicated, then don't just shy away from it. If it was easy, then everybody would do it. So, but you got to push through there. Today, we're sitting here, of course, on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. You've made the effort to come to this class, and I certainly appreciate it. But you've made this, you've taken a step to really push forward, and just keep that in the back of your mind. This is about a softball. It's a Tom Hanks from A League of Their Own. It's a softball team, and everybody loves to play softball. But if you want to be the best, you really do have to push through. And the primary purpose today I'm going to help you quickly just understand the basic structure of a request for proposal. I'm going to walk through just the sections, discuss some of how the importance of them, and then I'm going to actually just dive in and show you experientially how to go about taking the RFP and then moving to the next level of developing a response that's competitive and it takes in the information that you're using from the past and helping that use that as a framework for getting better results in the future. And then I'm going to help you determine really kind of what's next. But first of all, before you actually start writing, you really need to understand the contract instruments that governments use to get your attention. As you know, the primary objective of the public sector space and contracting with private sector, built upon that basic theory of the firm, of why we contract with each other. You've got a specialty, you've got an expertise, you're subject matter expert. They need your services, they need your supplies, and it's a productive relationship. We have a strong history in the United States of contracting with the private sector to make sure we to provide the services that are necessary for the governments that we serve. And that's their goal. And so in order to do that, make sure they get the best, they develop an instrument to get your attention and make sure really the music's playing together and everybody has the same opportunities and ability to respond. And so they'll use these instruments. So one, the most common request for information, basically learning about you as a company. What are you able to offer? Making sure that you can meet potentially what the government's seeking to do, or sometimes referred to as, the source of salt, or even going in to actually doing it specifically and know kind of really where they need to be at. They know they need accountants, they know they need civil engineers, and doing a request for qualifications, so that they can see to make sure that you're all equally qualified and you have what is necessary to be at the table in order to bid. So you can develop a bid that has some apple to apple comparison. And then, once they actually decide to actually get some prices, then go into so maybe the invitation to quote, just a basic picking up the phone. A lot of I get calls all the time about, these micro purchases, up to about 25,000 level. I can just call you and ask you to give me a quote on a project. And it's something that, everybody knows what you're asking for, and they can give you a response per square foot number, per an hourly number of some sort, but just simple method to get you in doing business with that government. And that's important that you have your capability statement ready to go with that kind of a response. And also, if you're not familiar with the Dynamic Small Business Search System, DSBS, watch some of the videos on that. But you really do have to have that information ready to go in a good approach for governments to come and find you. And we're still getting folks to come into the room. I'm just going to share with you that this is a recorded version. It's live on YouTube. It's available to you right after. And I do appreciate you coming today. If you have any questions, pop them into the chat box, or just politely unmute yourself and just let me know what the question is, and I'll try to answer as we go along. We'll spend about 45 minutes together today, but it won't rush you. You'll have plenty of time to ask questions. And then we'll get into the real documents that you're mostly likely to see, that solicitation, that combined synopsis solicitation, the invitation to bid, or the request for bid with the government is giving you information about a bid. They're pretty specific about how they want to do it. Everybody should understand it, and you're able to give back a quote of some sort, a price of some sort, but more formalized, giving you some time, 30, 45 days to respond, but somewhat standard. And then we get the one that really scares everybody to death. Sometimes it's, the request for proposal. But I like them the best. This is the one where you really get to shine. Okay. You get to show the government, you get the person who's hiring you, really what you know, and you can build into it. And so it's important that we are ready to go with those, and we're able to come in and give a good synopsis and summary of who we are, and we do that in the right way. So that's important that you have that documentation there, and you have the tools that can help you to really explain yourself in the right way. But before we get into that, I like to always just point out that all of these, including the RFP, there's really a formal definition, but I like to point out that it's a solicitation. Okay, all of them, and that's important because I get the calls a lot of times saying, "Mark, isn't this a done deal?" I'm like, no, it's not. Okay, governments have a lot of mechanisms to engage with you and to hire you without going through a request for bid or proposal. They can do that, soul sourcing, specific methods to actually get your attention. And so so know that when you see an RFP, invitation to bid, They really are going into the marketplace and they want a competitive response through a bidding process. You are competing against someone else, not always bidding about price. Price is generally a part of that, sometimes a large part of that, but most often in an RFP, a small part of it. They're looking at other parts. They're looking at parts about who you are, what kind of qualifications you have, other things. What are your methods, and what are you able to deliver? And so you need to have good responses to that. And so writing and explaining and communicating those skill sets become very important. Okay, so you have to have that ready to go. And it's always also important to remember that it's this RFP, this request is always by somebody who wants to procure with you, an agency or a company who's trying to buy something they consider of value. They're taking oftentimes year in advance to get to the point where they're going to hire you or hire your product, buy your product, or get your services, sometimes in multiple years. So they take it seriously and they talk about it, get a lot of people involved, and there's a lot of buy-in, really a crescendo of support for what they're actually about to do. And so they want you to take it seriously. And so you don't need to just respond to something very quickly. You don't need to be just throwing darts on every single thing you see. You need to be strategic and have a pinpoint because you can really get a reputation oftentimes of going in and actually tracking down things that you really have no opportunity really to win, and that gives you not the best reputation either. And so you want to make sure you have a good match. So understanding that, taking the time to really dissect an RFP to make sure it really meets you, and not that you're trying to fit that it fits you and what you offer, then it serves a better purpose. And also finally, it's a business proposal, okay, that you're sending back. So take it seriously. Don't fill things in with handwriting and in leaving things not organized the correct way. Take it seriously. It's important that you do that. I just drive that to you. Okay. Now, so in order to do that, you have to make sure that you really fully understand what you're looking at. So I always like to say, give you a little description. Here are the typical parts of an RFP. Okay. Now you will find that there's other things that you'll see over and over again, but this is the thing these are the items you always see pretty much on everything. Okay. And the ones that you should really pay attention to, but you're going to always see a statement of work. Why are they actually in the marketplace trying to hire you or purchase your product? Um, and so this is probably the most important part of everything you look at. And so what I always like to say, first of all, with a statement of work is when you read it, that paragraph, it needs to be, first of all, governments have a responsibility of doing what we refer to as the ABCs: accuracy, brevity, clarity, being clear on what they're asking for from you, accurate, that you can trust that information, and clear. What do they really want? Okay. And they have to do that in a statement of work. It should be a synopsis, maybe a paragraph or two. And when you read it, it needs to really, right in the back of your head, it needs to say, that song, Coldplay, you're the one that I wanted to find. I got some tickets to go see Coldplay in Miami coming up soon. I'm looking forward to that. But this is one of my favorite songs. You're the one that I wanted to find. If it's not doing that, you're not hearing that, move on. Just move along. Find the one that fits you. You will have better success with it. You're not wasting your time. Then technical specs. Take a look at all the details that they're looking at. The more thorough they are here, the better chance of really making sure you're a good match. But the truth of the matter is, you don't have to be 100% match here. You do need to be 100% match on that statement of work. Okay, it needs to be who you are. If it isn't, really, once again, move along. Technical specs, 75%. That's probably a good number because they're going out and saying, here's exactly what we are hoping for. But a lot of times they're not able to actually really get that. Okay, and so it's important that you really recognize that going into it. Okay, let me just check here. I'm getting a lot of people to line up in the room, and I'm gonna let some more people in. There we go. And I think some of you have an opportunity to let people in, so feel free to do that. But the technical specs, you can then reach across and you can actually look at other organizations that potentially could help you build that teaming, that exercise of subcontractors and others that might be a part of it. I oftentimes do this. I do work related to compensation management. I don't really go in and actually do salary studies or hire somebody else to do that part of it, but I look at it, or maybe sometimes they want things like a benefit study, and I don't really do that. So it's part of the technical specs, but I'm not going to walk away from the entire project simply because I can't do that part and I don't have it. And it's part of that. And if it's something that's really unusual, then likely none of your competition is able to do that either. So they may pull that out or they clarify that in a Q&A period that it's typically there. And so get a good match, but not necessarily 100%. And using chat and others to really clearly define what they're looking for, it is a good idea. And then schedule. Pay attention to the schedule. Really, two sides of the schedule. One is when the response has to be done, and staying on top of that. When is the pre-bid meeting? When is the Q&A section? When are you going to get the results back? And also, when are you going to win it? When are they going to make the net reward? Know what that schedule is so you can time it. The schedule is oftentimes tied with that technical spec is a part of your pricing and your pricing mechanism. Because if you got to do something in an expedited process, I mean, I do my work is usually about a 4-month cycle. If they want me to do it in 2 months, I'm going to charge them more. And if they want me to do it in 6 months, well, it gives me a little bit more flexibility and I can spread it out. And so I might lower my price. Okay. So keeping those two, that understanding in your pricing methodology as well. Then looking in, and also on the other side of the schedule is when you actually have to do the work and have it finished. What are you actually looking at in terms of your deliverables? And that's the next item. There's a list of deliverables. Paying attention to catch those. Make sure you document those and understand those. And then your contract terms and conditions. This is really your profit center in government business. You got to understand them. Contracts themselves, you very rarely will have any change. The city attorney, the state's attorney, county attorney, whichever attorney's involved, they hardly ever move. It's not required. There's enough of you with competition, and it lists it's maybe if there's something solely unique to you, then you might have some flexibility there. But it's very, very rare. So you got to live with it. And if you don't, then that's where you lose your money, and you don't want to have that happen. And so you fully understand that going into it, and you're pricing appropriately. And then, of course, the best part of working with government is they're going to tell you what they're looking for. They're going to give you a format of proposal. Pay attention to it. That's the number one thing. When I'm working with clients, if they're not following that format, that's the really top reason they don't win. Okay, they're not paying attention to what the government's saying, and if you don't do it at that point, when you're not going to do it any other time. So at the very beginning, when you introduce yourself, you got to make sure you're following that format of proposal. So using the AI technology to make sure you got to tell it to do that. Other times it can go a little bit based on what you've done in the past, and you don't want to have that happen. You want to pay attention to what the government itself is requesting and follow that format of proposal. And qualifications and experience. Be ready. Have your capability statement fully up to date, and even have multiple ones if you need to. It's so important these days. Really, when I started, there was nothing, and now federal government definitely, and state and local governments more and more. And so it's important that you do that. And the other thing is, people get confused a lot of times. They think it's more of your capability statement as a resume. Okay, you do have to have your qualifications and experience and your resumes there, but that's not your capability statement. Your capability statement is what are you capable of accomplishing? What can you do? Can you bring in others? Do you have access to more equipment if you're doing contracting and potentially like debris removal or things for it? What can you get your hands on? Can you bring in some subs? Be ready to explain who you are and how you're working within your environment to do that. And then, of course, your experience. And this could be both on your company side and individual side. Oftentimes in my type of work, you got to sell your credentials too. And so all the individuals I'm with, I make sure I've got that resume ready to go that is clearly defined. It's not one, talks about other clubs that I'm in, how great a soccer player was in 10th grade. They don't want that. They want your experience in business and how you're able to solve their problem. And that's what you need, and have those resumes standardized and how you present that information back to the government. And then, of course, cost breakdown. This is always a stumbling block for everybody. You actually can use AI to help you with that, and I can share with you. That's not going to be the focus of the day, but it's but fully understanding. But before you ever do any of that, when I work with clients, the first thing I say, tell me what it's going to cost you to do your work, okay, and then to make profit on it. Know what that is. Know that number. Before you do anything else, know that number, and then step back and do some analytics about how you can do comparison. But understand when you're doing cost comparison in government contracting, specifically when responding to RFPs, it's not just price. Okay, price is the denominator. It's a part of the calculation. It's part of the formula, but it's not oftentimes even a majority of it, or even in a significant. Something that's like 20%. Oftentimes is the number, or 80% something else. So you got to, when you do analytics, you got to look at your competition across the board, understanding who your competition is, and saving that information in a format that you can then get it to technology to help you with generative technology to help you with analytics and so forth is a wise strategy. And then finally, evaluation criteria. The first thing I do often whenever I'm using our chat, I always specifically tell it to pay attention to the evaluation criteria. Okay, do that first. Understand that, chat. And I talk to it like I'm say it's a human sometimes. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but I get in there and say, here is how they're going to evaluate you. I want to get 100 on this. Tell me how to get 100 on it, okay? And help it along and give them the avenue, the items that they need. It needs to really evaluate you and having your resume ready, examples of your work in the past, samples of your writing styles, things of this nature. Make it look and feel like you. Okay, but here are your typical parts, how they translate in. Every RFP you pick up, you're going to find that it fits these items somewhere. Sometimes it's hidden, got to pull it out, but you'll find these items. Plus, you'll see other things, all those affidavits and documents and things that you have to do. Those are important. We can't leave them out, but it's not something that we want to focus on right here today. Okay. Now, once again, the most important part, you're the one that I wanted to find. Statement of work. If it doesn't fit you, move along. A lot of opportunity. And despite the popular belief, this is the largest contracting period in American history by far. State and local governments are issuing RFPs at record levels, and there's plenty of opportunity. I try to stay away from all the sausage making, especially at the federal level. And we know we're hearing a lot of differences of opinion there. Just let's all just take a deep breath, see through it, push through it. Governments are stuck. They're not going to stop spending. This is not going to happen. And they're going to buy. We have responsibilities as a country, and you just got to see through all that. And you'll find that as a business owner, that's the best way. That's the best approach to happen. And we'll recover here and get more of those opportunities. And just understand also that when you're looking not only at just your business in general, but when you're looking at an RFP in terms of how you respond to something, that work expands. It's a basic business rule, Parkinson's law, so as to fill the time available for its completion. So if they're giving you 2 months, take 2 months. If they're giving you 2 days, be ready to go in 2 days. Okay. And you can do that if you organize in the right way. And I'm going to show you some organization tools. But I have a client today and they're looking at a bid, not due till April 30th. They want to write it, submit today. It's not a good strategy. Not a good strategy. You get prepared, think about it, give yourself time, but don't really send it in too early. It's going to be changes. If it canceled, nowadays we're seeing that at some of the federal level, but also there could be an amendment of some sort. Not only that, but you just don't want your RFP response laying out there too long. There's just too many items that could go wrong for you. And just as we get into the actual experiential part where I'm going to work through this, I want you to understand some basic tips. The first is always read your proposal. Don't trust anything else, any technology. Use technology to help you, of course, but read it all the way through. Take the time. This is business for your company. And so it's important. Pay attention to those areas that I just talked about as you go through, make a notes. Oftentimes I'll keep a spreadsheet with these type of items on here. What are they really looking for? And refer back to it for different RFPs over time. And all good is keep things over time. You'll find that a lot of times it happens over and over again. And not only that, but sometimes, like I have, I'm at a point where I forget who I even worked with, and in the past, and I've done work with them in the future. I literally walked into the city hall and said, "You know, I've been here before." And sure enough, earlier in my career, I did work for them, and I was there for my second time. I didn't realize it until I got in the room. Set it aside. Think about it. Use thinking time when dealing with government contracting. It's really important. Okay. Talk to others, colleagues. Make sure you're a good fit for it. Don't make yourself fit it. Okay. Make sure it's a good fit for you. Okay. Complete the proposal itself in one setting and as much as you can. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. But then you can come back to it afterwards, let it set aside and make any changes that you know. And I'm a really big believer that the only source of knowledge is experience. Okay, get in there and learn, learn, learn. So let's go and learn. This course is contributed to Albert Einstein. Okay, so let's take a look at that RFP. Now, if you're using our services, RFP delivery, I encourage you to do that. And I think I mentioned earlier, I dropped into the chat box a quick note. If you like what you hear today, please give us a good rating on Google. It's become more and more important these days, and I appreciate that, and I do ask for that. So thank you. Here in your account, as you go into it with us, remember here, if you're not familiar with your DSBS, Dynamic Small Business profile, you can tap here with your UEI when you add it, and we'll take you to that. Make sure it's fully available to you with details. It is up to date. If you don't have that, give us a call. We help you with that. Make sure that you're always with your capability statement linked, and you can pull that up, have that ready to go. In fact, I'm going to download this one here. And making sure I have these documents as a PDF version, and this will help me in my actual chat experiment here. Okay, and I'm gonna have these documents ready to go. Maybe samples of my work, and I'm gonna anything I can add and help it will give me a better result. Okay. I had someone the other day say, doesn't chat really make up things, and it gives you information that's not true, it's ghosting, and it really doesn't. That's actually your fault. Okay. Let me say it again. That's your fault. Okay. You're not training it the right way. You're not going in and giving it the information it needs to help you. And it's not like anything else. You got to give it some material to make sure it's back, just like what you would normally do to educate someone about you as a company. Okay. Before I get started, I'm gonna just check here. Let's see about questions that might be going on. Would you consider? Yeah, that was me. PowerPoint is everything's going to be available after this. I'll show you some of that as well. And it is a recorded presentation. It'll be available to you immediately after the session. Okay. So that everybody's, if I accidentally hit audio mute or something, please let me know. And you don't hear me, and somebody can just tab in there and catch my attention. Okay. But here we go. Now we're at the screen here where you're actually looking for bids. And I want to point out that in here, we do have some advanced tools. But first of all, your capability statement is stored here. If you have provided it to us, tap here, and then you can download your capability statement. Okay. This is also indexed with us, and we present it to others who could potentially use that. And we have that available to you. And here, a drive in our more advanced services, keeping things organized is very important. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my drive to be used for here. If you don't have some sort of online tool to help you maintain your information, I recommend it. And this is a typical one that we've done. An organizational drive is already organized with templates, with the RFP process, with videos and so forth, but ready to go information for you. But having access to your drive using a chat is a good idea. It gives you that information. You're able to store it here, and it can drop in. And keeping your information organized in a succinct way, having the components of the RPs that I just talked about, where data can be here for you, samples of your executive summary, samples of your qualifications, not necessarily samples, but maybe your actual licenses and so forth. What are your qualifications, your materials that you've written, literature that you've written, things of this nature. Methods, how you do your work, how much equipment do you have, the list of your equipment, what types of equipment they are, and so forth, and maybe how you did. In my business, is how we do interviews, maybe a sample of the interview that's stored, having things ready that you can refer to, your certifications that you have, especially if you're doing a small business certification, woman-owned certifications, minority business enterprise, minority women business, all the ones that you have here ready to go, stored, forms that you complete, your e-verify forms, your W-9, and so forth. All the states have different ones. And then, of course, performance, the big one, samples of your work, letters of recommendations that you have, completion documents that you've given, final reports, these types of things, they're ready to go, including your reference sheet. Reference sheets are so important in government. Another common question I always get is, I don't have any references, Mark. I just started. But listen, we all have references. Okay, you just got to figure out where they are. You got to get 3 to 5 of them, and you're going to start with, of course, those ones you contracted with. You won't have that. Just get some character references. Governments always ideally say, here's all the ideal things. Here's a perfect person that we can get to, but you can't always get that. And what you need is somebody who can say something good about you, because your first person you're really trying to impress, you're not always trying to win that bid straight up. Okay, you got to impress the contracting officers that they can count on you, that you can get the work done, and you need a story for each of those. And I stress that in whenever I'm doing training on references. But having that information in this drive ready to go, and then you can get chat access to it, so it goes and learns more about you. Okay, and that's important. Okay, in the process. So showed you how to organize, get everything ready. And I would just point out that I actually have a process where we go in and actually in the process, look at those bids of interest that you're working. I actually keep here formal chat information. It's also things I want to share with others, but primarily you're interested the ones that you're working. There's really 4 stages. And I'll just point this out while we're online here. First of all, the first stage is not here, is the pre-active stage. You're getting to planning. Governments don't do anything in the dark. Okay, before the city council issues a contract or an RFP for a playground, they've talked about it in the community for a while. I can guarantee it. They budgeted for it. They've got that crescendo of support for it. And so, while it's there and they're talking about it, learn about it. And we monitor that. You'll see the words upcoming frequently, and that means that bid's coming, but it's still in a stage of development. And so you can practice more traditional business development. You can get in there, you can shake hands, introduce yourself, show them products, things of this nature. However, once that RFP goes to the street and it has a due date, then it becomes really into a cone of silence. And you got to be very careful, extra careful about how you approach it. As tempting as it is to pick up the phone and call them and ask a question, don't do it. Okay. You can find yourself in a non responsive situation by not following the rules, and they will never say anything to you, and there will be nice as anything. It's cordial and everything, but you're not on the list at that point because they can't find themselves in a litigious environment where they're essentially they violated a rule of contact and there's a potential influence that's been made there, and that you'll never even potentially know about it. You just don't ever hear from them again. Okay. And just to give you that heads up. So when you go to an active stage, follow the flow of it all the way to that period of time where you're winning. And I have a folder here called no bid because a lot of times I look at bids, and unless it has, I'm going to note that I've done something. And so, but if it comes up there and that scope of work didn't match me, I'm not going to bother with it. But if I get into it and, I'm only got 50% of the actual requirements, then I'm not going to, I might want to keep it. And I'm going to know that if it's something like this in the future, this is why I'm not bidding it. I'm going to learn why I choose not to bid so I can become better at why I'm going to choose something. In fact, I may even use this as a tool to help me when I'm analyzing and say, hey, chat, here are the ones I don't like, and here's why I don't necessarily like them. Keep a list, and don't look at these for future references. And so use it to push out some other types of bids that I might be reviewing. Okay, but active stage, come in, start a folder, keep everything organized. Here's some of the ones I've worked in the past. Keep it organized, all in one folder, so you have all the information, and you can point to that particular drive if you need to in the process. So let's go find the bid. I haven't actually found the bid yet that we're going to talk about in RFP, but I'm going to go in, I'm going to find something that I'm used to in order to do it, to make this presentation today. I work in the field of compensation management. So when you come in here and you search and the filters, remember on the left-hand side, you can filter, and I have some filters already built that I can just run at any given time. But this is basically taking these 49,000 and be very precise down to the word within category, within the state, and so on. But every one of these qualifiers that I add becomes limiting. If I add one of the federal qualifiers, I only see federal bids. If I add a state and local one, I only see state and local. Okay. So it keeps me, give you that option. Over here on the right-hand side, don't work it together. Here I can just do a big old word like compensation and get the results. And I'm going to get a really broad cross section of bids. Yeah, I got some extra time. I want to kind of look and see what's out there. First, you need to learn how to spell. There you go. And I can search it and it'll go out. But, compensation could be in a lot of different bids in different ways. Okay. And so it may not be the best way to search, but if I like the search tool, I can save it and run them at any given time. So maybe coming in and saying, okay, Mark, let's go back in and do a little bit more filtering and be more precise and do compensation within human resources. And that weeds out a lot of bids. Okay. And not only that, but I really want to work in Georgia. Okay. Maybe not. We'll see. Okay. I'm actually a big believer in this bid. Okay, June May 28th coming up, state and local. Job class is perfect. This is what I do. Basically, you're the one I wanted to find. Let me make sure that says that on the scope of work. But I step into it, go in. We've got this is good, even looking better. A smaller government. I know this government here. It's within an hour. I can actually drive there and do this job. And it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Okay. Capture the bid. So it's met, as you hear me talking, it's meeting some what I call indicators of success. Okay. These are the things I look for in a bid in order to determine if I'm going to bid on it. Okay. Size of the government, location, the types of work that's actually required. This one here, it makes it even better. I don't have to leave my bed at night. Things like this. You got to determine what things are important to you, and then look for that in your analysis. Always kid around. If I'm going away, I like to work in South Dakota and North Dakota. It's one of my favorite parts of the country. But when I'm there, I also like to do a little fishing. Okay, so I want to be near a fishing stream. Okay, and then that becomes an important indicator for me because if it's there, then it's something I want to look for. However, when I first started, boy, I had to feed my family. I wouldn't take anything. I had a client today. He said, I'll take anything. That is an indicator that you could follow through on. Okay. So make sure you do that. Capture the bid so you don't lose it. Okay. Always. And that way you can monitor that. But at this point, I'm ready to go. I'm not going to pick up the phone and call that person. I'm not going to email Nancy until I read the document first, see what the rules are, see if the document's here. There it is. Okay. I'm able to pull the document, pull it down. Okay. And at this point, I'm actually going to share with you a PDF version. Okay. But what I'm going to do at the same time in my organization method, okay, is start pulling that data. Let's see here. There we go. I'm going to start pulling it to the web, okay, to my online drive because I will need it here in the future to actually bid it. Okay. Okay. And I'm gonna put that due date front and center. And I believe it was May 28th, my mother's birthday. Okay. Here we go. And put that in there and drop that in. Now everybody knows my password. I'm gonna have to change my password. Okay, here we go. May 28th. Okay. And so we go in and go in. I'm gonna drag that in there. All my documents will be in this folder. I only had one document for this one. Okay. Opening that up. And I'm gonna see the details. Okay, maybe I'll open this up in Adobe online. Okay. At the same time, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna create a document here, Google Doc. I do everything in my Google Doc here. I'm gonna call it there. I'm gonna go ahead and just label it RFP response. Maybe I'll throw in the number, the name of it. Eventually, I'll use the name that they want me to use. Okay. Put my date here. Always that date front and center so I don't forget. Okay. If they change the date, I change the name. Okay. I also want to know how do I submit it? Keep it front and center. Because if you got to do it online, it's quicker. If you got to do it paper, you got to give yourself a few more days. I run into that all the time, but I encourage my clients to always label that up front there. Okay, here's the bid. Okay, I've got it here. And my questions deadline, I got to April 25th. So I need to add ask my questions the appropriate way. But look at this here. I actually have to file it by paper delivery. Okay, so it's paper. And I'm going to put myself a note about the address. Okay. And then I'm going to start, you got all these great tools out there. I love Monday.com. But in this case here, I'm going to use this free tool. Table, quick there. Whoop. I just use a quick format, status, and then I use action items. Okay. And just a quick, easy to use project management tool. And then drop in using what Google gives us as a drop down option, project status. And then I start listing everything I need to do. Okay. One is it's going to be a paper submission. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I remind myself of that. Okay. But then I'm going to take that bid and really start dissecting it. Okay. And so as you go through, the evaluation criteria are important. Okay. It's proposal, response, date, location. But what is it I'm looking for? Oh, yeah, it's scope of work. Okay. Let's go just kind of jump on down there and see what that scope is. There he is, one paragraph. And the purpose is this: position, pay scale. Work will include reviewing, ensuring recommendations. It's exactly what I wanted to find. It is perfect. Not only that, to talk about the finance director, even better. I work real well with finance directors, department heads. Okay, so this is perfect for me. So I'm gonna actually step in. So now what I need to look at is the details, the specs. Here's the specs. What do they want me to do? Okay, I'm gonna have to do these items, standard items, nothing unusual. Okay, if I found something that I needed to do. Here's update the pay scale. I might want to have to do probably a salary study of some sort. Okay. Oh, they also want a 10-year staffing plan review. May have to bring in somebody else for that. So I'll have to do that and determine that. So that helps build my team. Okay. And some other things they may want me to look at, but it's not clear. So I will be aware of that, but I'm not going to be focused on that. Okay. And so here's the responsibility, my insurance requirements. Here's the proposal requirements evaluation. Okay. The proposal format, how I got to do this. They want me to use these. Okay. Identify you who's your project manager. Okay. So what I'm going to do is probably label these things really quick in here and sort of itemize them one by one. Okay. Statement of methods and procedures. Okay. And I'm going to do it first before I start with chat. Okay. But I'm going to do all these right now. But I'm going to go through, talk about what I have to do. Okay. Now, in another window. Okay, let's just go ahead and get going. Okay, I'm gonna open up. I use ChatGPT, and the reason why is because we've got this GovDirections RFP writer here, and it's for you. You can go in, you can explore GPTs. Okay, and when you go in and explore it, you can actually come in and we have it. You see, I use it a lot, but you can just search GovDirections RFP writer. That's 746 using it right now. Go in there, and we there. Some people like it. If you like it, give me a good rating. Appreciate that. Helps others. If you don't like it, please move along. It's important not to get bad ratings. Sometimes that happens. So competition comes in and says bad things about us, and it just happens. I don't know why these teams let that happen, but it happens. Okay, let's just go ahead and start the chat. Okay, going in. Always like to remind chat that that we like them. Say hello, chat. Okay, treat it like a human. I don't know why I do that, but it just seems to be important. I'm ready to get started. A new RFP response. Oh, I gotta type. I think it forgives me. Gets to know me, and when typing is not the best. Okay, and I'll say, "Are you ready?" It's an engagement going there. Okay, and with that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and have my folder ready to go with my documents, and it remembers who I am and so forth because I do this a lot, of course. And I'm going to say, please label this project Flowery Branch. That way I can remember, in the future. And I might actually keep, if I was in, if what I would encourage you to do is to keep one conversation going by category. Okay. So if I'm doing compensation um, work, then all my compensation studies would come under this. If I'm doing cost allocation work, I might do another category, another project area just for that, and keep all the RFPs in there because it can learn from that information as you go into it. So whenever I'm ready, upload the RFP. I'm gonna say, well, before I upload RFP, I would like to tell you more about my capabilities. It is important that my capabilities match the requirements of the RFP. Okay. Here is my capability statement. Okay. Let's just go ahead and drag it in. Or any kind of capabilities you can get. Here's my resume. Here's a background of all the projects that I've done, things of this nature. Okay. The more information you can give about your company, about you, is the better. Okay. And at the same time, while it's doing its work, it'd be nice. It's using some imaging too. Sometimes I said to tell it, please don't use imaging. Okay. Or other times you might want to say, here is my logo. Please incorporate in my responses. Okay. Drop in my logo. Go ahead and give it some background information. I think I've got it here. Desktop. Chat demo. Here it goes. Sorry about that. I should have had that one ready to go before I said I was going to do it. See, but you get in the image. Here it goes. Virtual folder. Because I use my logo a lot and supporting our brand. Okay. There we go. Now, okay. Here is the RFP that I'm responding to. Please review. You don't actually have to say please, but you might as well treat it kindly. There's no reason to be angry. A lot of people are angry these days. We don't need to be angry. Okay. Please review and focus specific attention on um, the specific attention on the wait, sorry about that, on the evaluation criteria. About three of the requirements. Yeah. Pulling it out. Okay. See, it's really not hard. Okay. The hardest part is coming up with that conversational question, I think. So take some time, treat it respectfully, and you'll find that that's not really that difficult either. Okay? So it's coming through, giving me some background, giving me some details. But I'm not starting on the proposal yet. So here's this part here. I'm going to just copy. Okay. And I'm going to confirm this. Okay. Put it in here first like this. Okay. Then I'm gonna go back and confirm, make sure that I agree to that. Okay. But it kept just, I know at least this is required. There could be some more requirements there. And they want 5 public sector references. That's important. Okay. I probably would have thought 3. But there. And so I want to catch it, make sure I don't miss something. Okay. Back of the chat. Done. Here's our evaluation criteria. Okay. Important dates. How I align. It's told me that. Okay. Okay. Let's get started. I really want to win this proposal, this project. So do your best at aligning my capabilities to the requirements. Thankfully, it doesn't spell as bad as I did. Can you please, please start with a cover letter that highlights my local presence as well as a detailed comparison, a detailed match to their evaluation criteria. Or maybe I'll just start first to their requirements. Okay. Now, in the meantime, it's going to give me a structure it recommends. Okay. And that's going to be based on some reasoned analysis. And I'm going to most likely do what it said. Oh, it actually already did a cover letter for me, but it didn't do what I asked it to do. It gave me a little quick summary. Okay. So I'm going to come back and ask it to redo it. Please redraft. It gets ahead of you. You know, it's been doing this a little bit with me. Redraft cover letter and highlight. I want it to tell them that I'm local. Okay. Okay. See where I'm going with this? This is actually not that difficult. And within another 10 minutes, I'm going to be finished with my proposal. Okay. So here's a draft of it. Okay. Now, the other thing is I'm going to kind of get things ready over here while it's doing that because I got to be a little bit more productive in my response. Okay. So I'm going to build everything else beyond, below this here. Okay. And I'm going to just go ahead and give myself a page break, insert, break, page. Okay. And I'm going to start my cover letter right here. Okay. Now that I've done that, it's actually finished my cover. Okay. I can come back, go in. Still doing it because I asked it for a detail one. There we go. Okay. Yes, go ahead. But first, give me an executive summary. Always give an executive summary. Okay. Um, and once again, always about how I fit. While it's doing that, go ahead and get back over here. Do my cover letter. I've got my logo ready to go. I'm gonna put my logo here. Okay, insert logo because I'm a brand. Branding is so important. Okay, image, upload it from the computer. I actually have it in my drive here, but you probably are doing things on your logo there. Documents. Let's see here. Going into my desktop again. Have it ready to go. Okay. So dropping it in and always date it appropriately. The date should be the date the documents due. It's again my mom's birthday. She's no longer with us. But you miss her. There you go. And go here. Tab it over. Okay. Now, what I sometimes do is because otherwise you're going to look and feel, and I encourage my students to do the same thing. Um, get rid of some of these bolds because chat is bolding the way it thinks it should bold. Maybe you should go back and redo it and bold it the way you should because it's a sort of a dead giveaway with a lot of bolds. But you do want to use the right bolds. Okay, so go through there and do that in the right way. Okay, and have it there, and always going in and look at formalize and closures. And I'm gonna do myself a cover closures. Okay, closures. Okay, and I'm gonna start me another page break. Excuse me, here, I'm actually just go ahead and just do a section break so I can differentiate between the two. Okay. And this is going to be my cover sheet that I'll come back and do in just a minute. Okay. And then I'm going to give myself another break, section break. And this is going to be my proposal. And maybe my table contents right here. Okay. Before I start. And I'm going to use the Google tool to help me insert table contents. Okay. Makes it a lot easier when it keeps up with everything. Okay, and then I'm going to get myself a page break right here again. Okay, keeping this part together, the sections, important later on. Okay, now in the meantime, chat's been working for me. Almost like my administrative assistants type me up a nice little executive summary. Okay, and I'm going to tell it, go ahead and move forward. You are doing a great job. Just like somebody in the office, and you constantly remind them how they're doing such a great job. Okay, there you go. Going in, click there. I've got this details here. Now, I want to share with you, as nice as this is, it's not your proposal. It's chat's proposal. So make sure you go through and read everything. Make sure it says what you want it to say and it has your flavor. Okay. It comes and learns me. It's based on how my writing style anyway. But it needs to be your writing style as well. You need to fit it. And so like using things like I've pointed out, how it should tie me into it and giving it some instructions, always the best way to do that. In addition, chat's going to give its own headings. Now, I usually strip out all the headings, but it's gotten used to me now and knows where I like to do a heading 2 and a heading 3 or a heading 4. And so it's learned that about my style. Okay. It will learn that about yours too. But until you actually get to that point, you need to make sure you read through it and you do it the right way. Okay. And then it's breaking up the sections for me. And as I do that, I'm going to just say, as I'm copying it and moving on, and I'm going to say move ahead. Okay? Give it some instructions, let it keep working. I'm going to do my work here. Come in here, drop it in. I'm not going to do a page break here. I'm just going to drop it in. Here's the details. Now, it's also going to stick in some basics that I'm going to pull out. First of all, I don't need any horizontal lines in my response. I'm going to format it my own way. In addition, I might strip out the larger font so it's not 17 because it's most likely they're going to want 12 points. Okay, so I might come in here and say edit, select all, and then I'm going to go in and constantly remind it to be on 12 font. Okay, doing things like that. Okay, is important to do that. Okay, so you saw how I've used chat and I've used it in a productive way. It's building a document for me and it's sectioning it out for me and not just telling it to write a RFP response and doing some short response to it, but I'm doing it deliberately, going in by section. Or, I mean, even for example, here, I might want to go back in and say, expand on a section, okay? On, let's see, maybe it's page, the plan development recommendations. And call attention to whatever I want it to call attention to, okay? To my 34 years of experience planning, okay? Give it some additional help, okay? And it'll redraft it for you, okay? And think about it as you're going through things that you want to do, and it will help you out a little bit. So I didn't redraft the entire part, just that one section, okay? So I'm gonna come through, I've got the section as a whole, drop it in, okay? And then I'm gonna come back and replace that one section for me when I get to it. Here we go, okay? And I have just taken what used to take me literally days sometimes to get done. Now I've done it in, well, in 20 minutes. And let me tell you something. If I submitted this proposal for real, I think I'd win this project. I really do. I'm at a point now in my career, I don't really do this anymore, but I would win it. It's that good of a match. I'm doing it the right way. Okay. I'm that confident in it. So I'm going to stop there. We're at almost a full hour. I'm going a little bit over. Now, with that said, how about questions? You're welcome to, at this point, I really do appreciate those who've joined us on YouTube. I'm going to reward the folks who came to us live on audience, and I'm going to give them opportunity to ask us questions that aren't videotaped. And so please reach out to us. The number is what it will be in the box below the YouTube, and it'll be there for you to use. So thanks a lot for joining us, and please visit us at rfpdelivery.com.